Snow fell silently from a sky that had long forgotten the sun. The storm howled across the empty white wasteland, eating sound, light, and hope. Cole's breath came in heavy bursts, each one forming clouds in the freezing air. He tightened the scarf around his face and pushed forward through the knee-deep snow. His boots were soaked, his fingers numb, and every step felt heavier than the last. But he had seen something in the wind, a shape that didn't belong there. The war had ended weeks ago, or at least that's what the last transmission said. Now the radios were dead, and no one came to rescue the forgotten. Cole was one of them, a medic left behind when the evac ships couldn't reach this side of the mountain. His supplies were nearly gone, but he still checked the ruins every day. He couldn't help it. It was the only thing keeping him sane. That morning, he saw the trail. Dragged marks in the snow, not made by a human. Too light, too scattered. He followed it on instinct, shotgun slung over his back, not expecting anything alive. But then he found her, curled under broken metal, half buried, half frozen. A girl with silver blue skin and long white hair like threads of ice. She wasn't human, but she was breathing barely. She wore armor that had shattered in places, cut through by something sharp. Her hands were red and raw. She had been crawling through the snow. Her eyes were closed. Her chest moved slowly, each breath weak and thin. Cole dropped beside her and checked her pulse. She flinched under his touch. She was alive. Still fighting. He wanted to leave her. She wasn't human. Maybe even a soldier from the other side. But there was something in her face, not fear, not hate, just pain. She didn't even try to speak. She just opened her eyes for 1 second and looked at him. Her pupils were shaped like stars. Cole had never seen anything like it. And then her eyes closed again. He didn't think. He wrapped her in his blanket and lifted her. She was light as a child. She didn't resist. The wind hit his face like a wall of knives as he began walking back to his shelter. The blizzard grew stronger. Cole leaned forward, protecting her with his body. His own skin stung, but he didn't stop. He had made his choice. The shelter was a crushed scout pod buried under snow and stone. The heater barely worked. The rations were down to a few packets. He kicked open the door and brought her inside. The warmth hit her like fire, and she stirred in his arms. He laid her on the foam bed, covered her with the last blanket, and started a fire using broken drone parts. Her lips were blue. Her fingers twitched. He boiled some water and added protein powder. Her eyes opened again, this time with a bit more light. When he raised the cup to her lips, she didn't pull away. She drank slowly. She was silent the whole time. He watched her, trying to guess what she was thinking. She didn't speak his language. Or maybe she was too weak to try. That night, she didn't move much. Cole gave her half his sleeping bag and took the floor. The cold bit into his spine, but he didn't complain. She needed the warmth more than him. At some point during the night, she reached out and grabbed his arm. Her grip was weak, but desperate. She didn't let go. Not even when he whispered to her that it was okay. The storm didn't stop. On the second day, her fever got worse. Her skin burned like metal under a torch. Cole used the last of the medical gel on her wounds. She moaned in her sleep, her body shaking. He tried to make her comfortable. He told her stories in English, not knowing if she could understand. Maybe she just needed a voice in the dark. On the third day, she opened her eyes and whispered something. Her voice was dry and cracked. The word meant nothing to him, but the way she said it made his heart squeeze. She was trying to talk, trying to live. Cole brought her more water and helped her sit up. She clung to his arm like a child holding a lifeline. He couldn't stop thinking about her eyes, how they looked at him, How they seemed to plead for something beyond survival. She was more than just an alien girl in the snow. She was someone who had fought to live, someone who hadn't given up even when everything was lost. And now he had become the only reason she was still breathing. Cole didn't sleep much the next night. The wind outside never stopped screaming. The small shelter creaked with every gust. He kept waking up to check on her. She was sweating, face pale, lips trembling. But she was alive. That was enough to keep him going. In the morning, she was sitting up, still weak, but awake. She looked around with wide, strange eyes, like someone in a dream. Cole knelt beside her and offered more warm water. She didn't resist. She stared at him as she drank, as if trying to understand him. Then she said one word again. The same one as before. "Kale," she whispered. Cole pointed at himself. "Cole," he said slowly. She blinked, then said it back. "Cole." Her voice was soft and broken, like dry leaves in the wind. Then she tapped her chest gently and said, "Kale," again. Cole nodded. Maybe it was her name. Maybe it meant help. Either way, it was the first real connection. Cole spent the day trying to patch her armor. It was different from anything he'd seen. Flexible but strong, like liquid metal dried into plates. It had claw marks on one side. Something had chased her. Maybe something that killed her team. Maybe something still out there. He glanced at his shotgun more than once that day. Kale didn't move much. She watched him closely, eyes following his every step. Her breathing was steady now. Her hands still shook when she tried to hold anything, but there was life in her gaze. She was healing, slowly, painfully, but healing. Cole couldn't help but feel proud of that. The rations were nearly gone. One protein bar left. Cole broke it in half and gave her the bigger piece. She tried to give it back. He pushed it toward her again. She looked confused, then smiled for the first time. It was small and tired, but it made Cole's chest tighten. That smile meant something to him. Later that night, Cole sat near the fire, staring into the flames. Kale had fallen asleep again, curled up on the bed, her white hair spread like snow. He wondered what her world looked like. Did it have storms like this? Did it have soldiers like her? Was she a soldier or something else? He didn't know. But he knew she wasn't just an enemy. He remembered what the general said during the war. Aliens were threats, no mercy. No surrender. They don't feel pain like us. They don't love like us. But Cole had seen pain in Kale's eyes. He had seen fear, sorrow, and strength. She was no different than him. Just caught on the other side of the fire. The third day came with silence. The storm had passed. The world outside was still white and cold, but quiet. Cole stepped out for the first time, scanning the distance. No signs of movement. No smoke. No lights. No life. Just snow-covered rocks and shattered wreckage frozen in time. When he came back inside, Kale was standing. Wobbly on her feet, gripping the wall, but standing. She looked at him and pointed toward the door. "Go," she said, in a voice stronger than before. Cole shook his head. "Too dangerous," he answered. She stepped forward anyway, tapping her chest, then pointing outside again. She didn't want to stay. Cole realized it then. She had something to do, somewhere to go. Maybe someone waiting. Maybe she thought she could find her people. Or maybe she knew they were gone and just wanted to finish her mission. Either way, she wasn't giving up. Cole packed what little gear he had. Blankets, shotgun, water pouch. The last bandages. Kale held his arm for support. Her body still trembled, but her eyes were clear. They walked together out into the snow. Cole helped her down the slope. Her weight against him felt familiar now, like something that had always been there. The cold cut into them again. But they moved forward, step by slow step. Cole didn't ask questions. He just followed her. She seemed to remember parts of the terrain, pointing at landmarks buried under ice. A broken ship wing, a crushed turret. Signs of a battle long over. They stopped at a hill. Below it was a wrecked craft, almost swallowed by snow. Cale stared at it with wide eyes. Her hand shook as she pointed. She limped faster toward it. Cole followed. The door was jammed, half frozen. Together they forced it open. Inside were bodies. Not human. Like Cale, frozen, still, dead. Cale dropped to her knees. She didn't cry, but her shoulders shook. She reached out and touched one of the bodies gently. Then she closed her eyes and bowed her head. Cole stood back, silent. He didn't know their names, their story, their war. But he felt the weight of her grief, as if it were his own. Cale didn't speak for a long time. She sat beside the bodies in silence, one hand resting on the armor of the fallen. Cole stood near the door, shotgun ready, watching the hills for movement. Snow drifted slowly across the open hatch as if trying to cover the pain they had found. After some time, Cale stood again. Her body was stiff. Her expression was cold. She turned to Cole and gave a small nod. There was no need for words. He could tell what she wanted. She had come to say goodbye. Now she wanted to leave. Cole helped her back up the hill. The wind was picking up again. He could see the way she leaned more into his side now. Whatever strength had carried her here had faded. Her breath came faster. Her skin had lost color. Again, she was trying to hide it, but Cole noticed. They found a cave hidden by a fallen rock wall and took shelter inside. It was shallow but dry. Cale collapsed near the back, pulling her blanket tight. Cole quickly built a fire. He boiled the last of their water and handed it to her. She drank slowly, her fingers shaking as she held the cup. That night Cole watched. Her sleep, her breathing was uneven. Fever was returning. He could feel her warmth even from across the cave. Too much heat. Too fast. He moved closer and placed his hand on her forehead. Burning, his heart tightened. They needed help, but there was no help coming. He checked her wounds again. The bandages were damp with sweat. He unwrapped one and winced. The cut was red and swollen. Infection had set in. The med gel hadn't been enough. He needed real medicine, real equipment, something better than scraps and heat packs. Cale woke briefly and looked at him. Her eyes were glassy but focused. She raised a hand and placed it on his cheek. Her skin was hot, but her touch was gentle. She didn't say anything, but in that moment, Cole understood. She knew she was getting worse. She just didn't want to die alone. The next morning, Cole made a decision. There's one Combs Tower still standing, maybe 5 kilometers east. He had seen its light blink during the early days of the blizzard. It was far, dangerous, and exposed. But if he could reach it, maybe he could send a signal. Maybe someone would hear. He wrapped Cale tightly in both blankets and sat beside her. She blinked up at him, eyes barely open. He pointed toward the mountains and said one word. Help. She didn't answer, but she closed her eyes and gave a slow nod. She trusted him. He didn't want to fail her. Cole packed light. Just his radio, some water, and his shotgun. Before leaving, he placed her hand around a flare and pointed to the ceiling of the cave. If trouble came, she'd light it. He didn't know if she understood, but he had no choice. He squeezed her hand once and stepped back into the snow. The journey was brutal. The wind had picked up again, sharp and angry. Snow reached his thighs. In some places, his fingers went numb more than once. He fell twice, once hitting his shoulder hard. But he didn't stop. He kept thinking about her eyes, the way she touched his face, the way she trusted him. When he reached the tower, it was barely holding together. The top had bent from the storm, but the signal dish still blinked weakly. Cole climbed inside, teeth chattering, and opened the old console. The power was low, but enough. He typed the distress code slowly with frozen fingers. Human survivor, 1 alien ally, injured, require evac. Coordinates. He finished the signal and hit send. The screen flickered. Then the system went dark. That was it. No confirmation. No reply. He stared at the blank screen for a moment, heart heavy. Then he stood and began the journey back. By the time he returned to the cave, night had fallen. He stumbled through the rocks, calling her name. Kale. No answer. He slipped inside and found her lying still, barely moving. Her skin was pale. Her breath was thin. But when he touched her hand, her fingers curled around his weakly. She opened her eyes and looked at him. Cole pulled her closer, using his own body to warm her. I sent the signal, he whispered. They might come. She blinked slowly. He didn't know if she believed him. He didn't know if he believed himself. But they were still alive together, and that mattered more than anything. The cave was quiet, but not peaceful. Kale's breathing was weaker than before. Cole sat beside her, holding her hand and watching the entrance. Every gust of wind made him flinch. Every hour felt longer than the last. He kept listening for a sound, engines, voices, anything, but there was nothing. He gave her small sips of water, rubbing her arms to keep the blood moving. Her eyes opened now and then, glassy and lost. Sometimes she whispered things in her own language. He didn't understand the words, but he answered anyway, just so she wouldn't feel alone. The fire burned low. Cole used the last scraps of wood and cloth to feed the flame. He stayed awake all night, leaning against the cave wall. His body ached, but he didn't close his eyes. If she slipped away while he slept, he would never forgive himself. In the morning, she didn't wake at all. Her body was hot, too hot. Her lips were dry. Cole dipped a cloth in snowmelt and wiped her forehead. He held her close and whispered, "Just stay alive, please." His voice cracked. He hadn't cried since the war began. But now his eyes burned. Midday brought a sound barely there, distant but real. A hum in the sky. Cole jumped up and ran outside. He scanned the clouds, heart pounding. A ship. It was far away, but it was coming. A small evac vessel, old but still flying. He waved his arms, screaming until his throat hurt. The ship circled once, then descended fast. Snow kicked up around the cave. The hatch opened and 2 figures in suits rushed out. Human. Medics. Cole pointed inside, shouting over the wind. "She's inside. She's dying." One medic pushed past him while the other checked his vitals. They brought Kale out gently. Her head rested against Cole's chest as they lifted her. She was barely breathing now. The medic pressed a scanner to her neck and frowned. "Fever's spiking. Internal damage. She's fading fast." Cole followed close, eyes locked on her face. She didn't move. Inside the ship, everything was white and clean. Warmth returned to Cole's skin as soon as the hatch closed. He sat beside her while the medics worked. Needles, patches, tubes. He kept whispering her name. "Kale, Kale, don't go." He didn't know if she could hear, but he wouldn't stop. The ship took off. Cole barely noticed. His eyes stayed on her. One of the medics looked at him. "She's not human. We should notify Central Command." "They might not." Cole cut him off. "She saved me. I saved her. That's all that matters." The medic didn't argue. He just nodded and turned away. They landed hours later at a snowy outpost built into a mountain cliff. Cole and Cale were rushed into the medbay. The doctors didn't ask questions. They treated her as one of their own. Cole sat outside her room, hands shaking, face blank. Time moved strangely. Fast and slow at the same time. Later that night, a nurse walked up to him. She's stable. Still weak, but out of danger. She needs rest. Cole exhaled deeply, his whole body sagging with relief. He pushed open the door and stepped inside. Cale was asleep, her skin no longer burning. Machines beeped softly around her. He pulled a chair next to her bed and sat down. His arm ached. His back throbbed. But none of that mattered. She was alive. He leaned forward and whispered, "You're safe now." Her eyes fluttered just for a second. She didn't wake, but he saw the corner of her mouth twitch like a smile. That night, he stayed by her side. He didn't need to say anything more. They had survived the snow, the hunger, the silence. Together, it didn't matter what galaxy she came from. She wasn't just an alien anymore. She was Cale, and for some reason, that meant everything to him. Cale woke up slowly. Her eyes opened to a soft ceiling and the quiet hum of machines. She blinked, trying to move. Her body was stiff, sore, but not in pain. Her vision cleared, and she saw him. Cole, sitting beside her, asleep in a chair, arms crossed and head down. She stared at him for a long time. His face looked tired, his clothes dirty and torn. His hands were rough from cold and work. But there was peace in his expression. He hadn't left her side. She reached out and lightly touched his hand. Cole stirred and opened his eyes. When he saw her awake, his face lit up. "You're okay," he said softly. She gave a small nod. Her throat was dry, but she managed to whisper, "Safe." He leaned closer and smiled, his voice shaking just a little. "You made it," he said. "You fought like hell." Cale didn't understand every word, but she knew what he meant. She looked at the tubes in her arms and the gentle lights on the machines. Her body was weak, but something inside her felt lighter now. Doctors came in later and checked her condition. They didn't treat her like a prisoner. They spoke gently, careful with every movement. One of them even smiled and said, "You're lucky he found you." Cale looked at Cole again. Yes, she was lucky. Very lucky. Over the next 2 days, she got stronger. The fever faded. The color returned to her skin. She started to sit up and eat real food. Cole visited her every hour. Sometimes he brought small things, a warm drink, a folded blanket, a story. She didn't understand all his words, but she liked hearing his voice. The base commander called Cole in for questioning. He asked about the alien girl, her name, her species, her mission. Cole said only what mattered. She was dying. "I saved her. She's not a threat." The commander wasn't pleased. "You brought in an unknown enemy," he said. Cole didn't care. "She's not the enemy," he replied. Outside her room, Cole stood near the window, watching the frozen mountains. He remembered the cave, the fire, her trembling hands. He remembered thinking she might die in his arms. And now she was alive. Stronger, healing. He didn't know why it mattered so much to him. But it did. Cale came to him that evening, walking slowly, wrapped in a blanket. She stood beside him, looking out the same window. The snow still covered the world beyond, but it didn't feel like a trap anymore. It felt like something they had beaten together. She turned to him and placed her hand on his chest. "Thank you," she said clearly. Cole didn't respond at first. He looked at her, surprised she had learned those words. Then he nodded, placing his hand gently over hers. He didn't need to say anything more. That one moment was enough. They started spending more time together. She learned a few more words from him. He learned how to understand her silence. They shared food, laughter, stories in different languages. She traced battle scars on his hand. He smiled when she did. It felt easy. It felt right. The medics were amazed by her recovery. "She's tough," one said. "Not just tough," Cole replied. "She's something else." Cale heard that and gave him a small smile. Then she placed a small metal shard in his hand. A piece of her old armor. A symbol of trust. That night, Cale didn't return to the medbay. She sat beside him in the bunk room, quietly resting her head on his shoulder. He didn't move. He let her stay like that for as long as she wanted. In a place full of strangers, they had become each other's home. 3 weeks passed. Cale was walking without pain now. Her body had healed, but she still carried the weight of loss in her eyes. Cole noticed it each time she sat by the window and looked at the mountains. She wasn't just recovering. She was remembering. The base was cold, but safe. Other survivors came in, soldiers and scouts from both sides. Some were injured. Some were angry. One man stared at Cale with hate, whispering, "Why is she here?" Cole stood in front of her without hesitation. "She belongs here more than you," he said. The commander kept sending reports to higher command, but no reply came. The war had shattered the sky, broken the world, and scattered the survivors. No one was sure who had won. Maybe no one. Maybe survival was the only thing left that mattered. One day, a new signal was received. It was weak but real. Coordinates, a ship, a voice speaking Cale's language. She froze when she heard it. Her hand trembled. "My people," she said softly. Cole looked at her and knew what it meant. Her side had found her. The ship arrived. The next day, sleek, silver, marked with symbols that glowed in the sun, Cale stood beside Cole as it landed. She didn't step forward right away. She looked at him, eyes wide, unsure. He said nothing. He just gave her a small nod. She walked to the ship slowly. A hatch opened. 2 aliens stood waiting. Their armor matched hers. One called her name, Cale. She stopped, looking back at Cole again. Then she ran to them. They embraced her. But her eyes never left him. Cole turned to leave, but a hand caught his. It was hers. She had broken from the group and was standing close to him. "Come," she said, one word. A choice, not an order. Not a command. An invitation. He stared at her, surprised. "I'm human," he said. "That's your world." She stepped even closer, placing her forehead against his. "You saved me," she said. "You are my world now." Behind her, the other aliens said nothing. They simply waited. Cole thought of the snow, the cave, the cold nights where he thought she'd die in his arms. He remembered the first time she said his name. He remembered carrying her through the storm. There was no question in his heart, only one truth. He stepped onto the ship beside her. The hatch closed behind them. The engines hummed to life. The mountain, the base, the cold, they all faded as the ship lifted into the sky. Cale took his hand and held it tightly as stars began to appear in the window. They had met by chance, through war and ice. He had saved her. She had saved him. They had nothing left of their old worlds. But together, they would build something new in the stars.